Hello, everyone. This is Dr. J, host of the Sexuality Space. Welcome to today's live event. My silent co-host Misha Elliott, is working in the back end to create our tweets for today. And as everyone is gathering into the live space, I wanted to share some information for those of you that are listening to the replay. The Sexuality Space is live every Wednesday, noon Eastern Time on Twitter. And I have worked to create a sex positive community where we talk about different sex topics, meet CEOs of companies, sex educators, researchers, and writers. And I work to integrate sexuality into everyday life by being seen in the daylight doing my work. So I welcome to you all who've already popped in for today. As a reminder, this is a recorded space which will live on the Twitter timeline and be repurposed on my website, on my FlowGen playlist, and on YouTube. I see some regulars. Hello there. Please note that the space is now equipped with its own chat feature located in the bottom right corner, and you can ask questions there as the space goes along. Last week, we talked about my new show, Purple Sex and Erotic Whims, on the Moan app, and the debut is Thursday, January the 5th at 4 p.m. Eastern. And tonight, I'll be on the Moan app kicking off with Mistress K, the monthly Moanster mixer and newbie. She's going to be showing me the tricks of the trade on Moan, no pun intended. But pun could be intended, whatever works for you. So if you haven't downloaded the Moan app, do that and join us tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern. That would be Mistress K and me. I'm sure it's going to be a wild time for all. So today we're going to be discussing the movie How to Please a Woman. And I have to say that this is all Misha Elliott's doing. We send each other information back and forth during the days on what we're up to, what we're working on, and we were laughing about this movie that she found, and she kept going, "You have to watch this, you have to watch this, you have to watch this." So I watched this, and boy, did I come away with some interesting information. Mish, did you want to say
I
something?
love how I just get thrown under the bus.
In a good way. Always in a good way. Are you going to be able to talk any today?
No promises.
Okay, that sounds cool. That sounds cool. Well, how many of you, if you can show an emoji, have seen the movie How to Please a Woman, the Australian film that I'm going to talk about today?
You have to give them options. We don't know what emojis they have.
It doesn't matter any emoji. Just show me that you're there. I got a 100 from Ramon. Maggie, have you seen it? I don't see any emojis coming from that person. I have a femdom who's in the room. If you've seen it, give us an emoji. But if not, I'm going to tell you some things about it and then we can have a conversation. This movie perfectly aligns with the new work I'm doing for 2023 for Purple Sex and the Reflection Deck for Women. And it was just timely, serendipitous. Everything about it was really spectacular. So let me tell you a little bit about the movie specifically. It stars a 50-something woman who is struggling, who turns a struggling removal company into a successful cleaning and escort business for women. And
They were a moving company. Pleased to move you.
yes, pleased to move you. And this is loosely based on a true story. So I don't know any more information about it than.
I did not know that.
Yes, I've been doing a lot of reading. I've been looking at the New York Times reviews. I've been going to different places and looking at what they've had to say about the movie. So they're looking at it, specifically about as a movie, and here's what the movie does and that sort of thing. But for me, I'm looking at it as what are the themes that are coming forward that we can talk about. For women's pleasure, and how can we use this as a teachable moment in the work that we're doing to move all of ourselves forward and be as good as sex people as we can possibly be. So I think one of the things that's exciting is that it really rung true for me that it's broaching the topic to get pleasure out in the world and to deal with the pleasure gap that has always existed for women's pleasure. And I love that I can put it in the same category as Good Luck to You, Leo Grant. And we discussed that movie and talked about the different things about it. And I think it's interesting when you have actors that can portray the sex positive components of sexuality. And one of the things that really stood out to me in this particular movie was how um, frank and open and clear the process of communication was. How do we get there? How do we do it? What words do we use? And that sort of thing. And so, if we're looking for the big overall theme of this movie, communication is definitely that particular theme. When we look at some of the other things that come on, it is, for me as a therapist, one of the things that I absolutely adored in this movie was the fact that they would sit in a parking lot in the middle of nowhere and people would line up and get in her car and have a conversation with her. Gina, who is the person running the business now, to discuss what they might be interested in. And it was all, in cleaning terms. And that part was just so funny to put everything together from a cleaning direction and what exactly you're going to have done. And then it'd be, are you talking about cleaning or are you talking about something else? So that part was always fun to take a look at how they were going to bring that forward. And I think there are some nuances in this particular movie. I mean, clearly we see the puzzles of female pleasure and that the director and the writer of the movie really took a look at body image. So we're dealing with swimming as a component of what women are doing and how Gina is one of the leaders and always out front in her actual swimming in the ocean, which is interesting if you think about how she's swimming through molasses with her partner, with her work, and that she feels pretty invisible. So I thought that was a really great way to showcase those two particular items. I think the film as a whole comes away as very self-affirming and dealing with self-exploration. And there were a couple of things that Misha and I'll send her a text message. And when she'd already seen the movie and I'm watching it after the fact, and I absolutely loved the woman sitting in the car describing exactly, here's somebody who knows what they want for pleasure. And she's saying, I want edging, and then I want more edging, and then I want a little more edging, and then I want annihilation. And it was the delivery of that whole process of really talking about the differences of what people like and want in their sexual personal menus. And I think the range that we can begin to see, and you have heard me say 100 times, if I've said it one time, sex is as individual as our fingerprint. And the more that we can talk about it, the more we can see that about all people. And I think in the big umbrella of sexuality, that this film is about people who've been ignored by society refind a purpose in themselves. And for Gina, she found that purpose through not only her work, but through taking a look at herself as a sexual creature. And I did a presentation on Friday for a group of romance writers in Vancouver, Canada. And they were talking about the the idea of older people having sex. And so I thought this just perfectly came into play to tie some of these things together. That when you take a look at age, well, first of all, if I use my PIMS model, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, we're going to be looking at what kinds of things are specifically going on in your body. You know, the capabilities that you have, the things that you might accommodate for. Are the hormones working or not working? Are there medications going on that are causing an issue for you? Are you having things that are happening in your body that you don't have an explanation for? And do you need some medical assistance in figuring that out? So we're dealing with, there's that physical world. But when you start looking at the emotion and the mental part of this particular story, and where you're looking at aging, we start to look at what our messages have been. That if once you're a mother or once you're a grandmother, are you still a sexual being? And most people think that that part gets cut off. And there was some interesting research that's talking about how that certain people were feeling very uneasy to be able to tell their family, their adult children, that maybe they were in a facility and they wanted to have intimacy and closeness with another person. How would they bring that forward? And so that part is always interesting in terms of guilt or shame or any of the negative traits that you might be carrying around with you that have come in from culture and that you haven't let go of in order to have the sexuality that you want to have. And I think that's one of the really cool things about this movie, is that you see this from the direction of someone who is working to have that happen. So that was pretty cool. And I see on the bottom of my phone, Misha has put the link. Lovely. And it is a party bus. Well, there we go, Ramon. I'm loving that. So I'm going to pause at this moment. I don't know if all of y'all have been paying attention to Twitter, but Misha is letting me know that my spaces are not showing up in the space bar. My spaces are not showing up to people who follow me. And this could, clearly just be a Twitter issue. Neither one of us are identified as being shadow banned. So I don't know that that part's coming into play. So if everybody could tweet out that you're in the space, that will, hopefully get folks to take a look at what we're doing and what we're talking about. Ramon, are you in a place where you can chat today? I don't see an emoji. I don't see anything. Mish, is there a particular item you wanted to make sure that I hit on today?
The arc for, I think his name was Antonio.
Oh, shoot, I'm not going to remember people by name. You're going to tell me more about which one he was.
Yeah, I actually
He
made
was
it
the
in.
one who was well endowed
Oh,
and
Antonio.
needed a
Gotcha.
little.
Yes, I'll talk about that because I have that marked on a specific.
It was either Antonio or Anthony. I can't remember. I know it was an Anto something.
Okay, I got you. I'll make sure I hit that. Hey, Ramon, how are you today?
Boy, how classic. Once you get past the size, the name doesn't matter anymore.
Well, actually, the funny part that he's bringing up about that is that the thing. Let me see where my notes are here because I marked something so specific about that. The Okay, it was Anthony. The actor is Ryan Johnson. The leading lady is Haley McKilhenny. And she talks about the empathy component where she is holding hands with Anthony and working with him to listen with your body. I thought that was one of the coolest things, that you got the visual of them holding hands, and it's like the light bulb went off in his head where he's been using whatever he's learned, whether it was from pornography or just how he thought things were supposed to be. This is what a woman likes. This is what a woman's gonna want. I have the equipment for that. Let me just go for it. I think they even use jackhammer as one of the terms, going, That's
Yeah.
not what we're interested in. That's not what we're about. That's not what we want. So let's work to listen with your body and watching their hands just move together with that nice stroking. You can't see them over here doing my hands, while I'm having this conversation. So, but Ramon, what struck
So
you?
yeah. Well, so first off, the realism of the whole movie, which is hilarious because I did read some reviews about it, how it was received, and a lot of the reviews was, well, it wasn't spunky enough, and it wasn't entertaining enough, and blah blah blah. And you know what, I agree. Leo Grand did a little bit better job about covering such scenarios, but no, it was a really good movie, and I mean, we've been to Australia many times, so yes, I know this kind of stuff is allowed in certain states in Australia, and it's licensed, and everything that they referred to. So to me, there was an accuracy to the whole,
The
the whole
sex
thing. It
work.
wasn't far
Yeah,
fetched.
yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't far fetched. But no, we enjoyed watching it, and yeah, I just, okay, so you've got some older women who at this point have decided I'm going to, eventually I'm going to step up and ask for what I want. Um, and yeah, I actually sympathized a little with the various reactions of the men. Some of them were, well, you just tell me what to do, and others were like, no, 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 that's not how men in Australia are. But eventually, it was great to see the different male reactions to the whole thing. So yeah, it was overall we really enjoyed watching it. Had a great time talking about it afterwards.
And I think that's the point that I want to hit about it. Whether we do a film critique to discuss, here's how the movie was put together, here's where it's right or wrong, or, where mores fit in or they don't, sex work, positive, negative, adultery, all of those things, it still becomes a tool that we can use as a teachable moment to have a conversation. And what I love about what this did is that so many people in the reviews that I read talked about the inclusive casting, the female direction, and putting a body positive spin on sexuality in later life. And that's something that we don't talk about. And when you saw the women naked in the space after they swam or before they swam, where they're changing into their clothes or changing out of their clothes, it was just that realistic component that, as you age, this is what your bodies may move into. But internally, how you feel about things, how you think about things, you may be in a place to finally say, I'm ready to address things that I have yet to address. Before I
Yeah.
die, I'm going to have sex the way I want to have it. And I'm going to say, this is what's important to me. And this is interesting. And so that's why I say overall, the movie is about communication. So I see that Mish has her hand up.
I'm just glad that this movie touched so many things for you. As soon as I saw it and I read the description, I was like, I don't know. And then I was like, oh wait, this is brand spanking new. This is 2022. And then
Mm-hmm.
it started, and I saw the name of the production company or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Fiery
Feisty,
Dames, Feisty Dames.
feisty, yeah, feisty
And I
dames.
lost it. I'm like, this is going to be good. And then I
Well,
started texting you.
Yes.
yeah, and you're absolutely right. The fact that I saw it was an Australian company and who the production companies were automatically made me feel like I'm going to get a far better representation than what an American film company would have done with this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see that Maggie's up on the stage here. Hey, Maggie, how's today going for you?
Yeah.
It's good, but I'm having a brain problem because I don't see where in the bottom of this I can retweet this space. It's like that button, the feather is gone. And I don't know if I'm just really having an issue because I'm like jet lagged and I don't see it, but like I see the little wand, I see two
They
people,
moved
I
the
see a
share
heart.
button to the top.
Okay,
They moved
so
it's the triangle at the top, maybe
the triangle at the top.
to
Or
the
Mish,
left of the three
could you
dots.
Mish, could
It's
you
like a
just
little
put,
tray shape with an arrow up by the word leave.
And so I have share via. So I have to do share via and then via. Oh my God, this is so complicated. All right. That's literally all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
welcome home from Africa. I'm so glad you made it back. I hope you had a great trip.
I did. Thank you so much. And next on my list is to watch this movie y'all are talking about.
Oh, good, good, good. Well, one of the things too that I wanted to point out that several people identified in looking at reviews is that besides the fact that we have the beauty of the female form in just, various shapes and sizes, many people felt like there was no ageism, racism, homophobia, or biphobia in the film, and that they felt like this film was a film for every woman. And it's hard to come across in presenting that where you have so many different themes that someone could feel the empathy in that moment and go, yeah, I can relate to that, or I can see what that has to do with. And one of the things that is different too about this movie is that the writer and director Renee Webster flipped the script on sex, because in the heterosexual direction, she's taking a look at the men, the Gina's husband, saying, "I'm not interested. This isn't what I want to do. I just don't feel like it." As the woman is coming forward saying, "This is what I'm interested in," or how she set up the you know go to the refrigerator, here's the drinks, here's the rose petals, all of that stuff. She set it up, and then there was no interest on the other side. So that's an interesting way to flip the script and go, wow, everybody could feel what it feels like to be rejected when you put yourself forward and start identifying the things that you're interested in and the other person isn't. And that's where the communication really comes in, and the way that you can go about the process is so wide and varied. And if you have some facilitation, whether that's you're taking classes, or whether you're working with a therapist, or whether you're just really good at saying, wait, let's talk, let's get this down on paper, let's see how things are. It is a way to start communication happening. And I love it when you can have a film and then you can have conversations with different people about the film. So one of the questions that I'm going to throw out, and Ramon, I'm sure you'll jump in and help me with this, but how do you think a movie like this would help a younger person start having a different perspective about older people? Not the dirty old man, or the cougar, or any of those kinds of things, but to really start doing that integration of sexuality holistically from birth to death. What do you think?
Um, I go right back to what you said earlier, the fact that it was plain speak, that to see fairly normal looking people in fairly normal looking scenarios and fairly normal looking bodies, and not the perfect looking everythings, I think would absolutely make younger people more comfortable in that regard, of saying, wow, these are normal. These are the people that I really do see around me more often than not. So
Yeah, we're not
I got to
looking
believe
at
it's a good
that.
point.
We're
Yeah.
not looking at the picture of the beautiful people, whatever that has to do with, the right, this, that, and the other, or even the way somebody like Cindy Gallup would talk about it, make, gosh, why did my brain just cramp? What is the name of her business?
Make love, not porn.
Yes, make love, not porn.
Yeah.
Like all the words just squished together. I couldn't get them to work. Where we're talking about if somebody's learning about sexuality through a scrubbed up specific video directed thing, you're not learning about what connection with people or intimacy, or identifying what works for you, what feels good for you, how you can bring that forward. And that it really is for your whole life, not just for someone who's young and beautiful and this, that, and the other, and being able to pull it forward and say, you know, this is how I connect with people and this is what's important for me.
Yeah.
Misha and I have laughed. I have to say, the funniest. I mean, I nearly fell off my couch laughing so hard, but Gina had that moment where her friend gave her the buy one, get one free. Here's a remote vibrator. And she puts the vibrator in. She finally decides to use it and she puts it in and she's got the little remote control in her hand and she's testing out stronger or, you know, all the levels that you can do. And then she hears the man come in the room and she jumps and the remote control goes flying across the floor. And of course, he picks it up and he doesn't know what it is. And he just pops it in his pocket and then gets on the exercise bike. And the action of his leg going up and down, pedaling, activates the remote control. I mean, if that wasn't one of the funniest scenes that I have seen, it was just hysterical.
No,
That's my top favorite scene.
and it's funny because as a guy, I looked at that. I absolutely could see, myself or other guys seeing this laying around. It's like, well, I want to leave this laying around where it might get kicked or damaged. I'm just gonna put it in my pocket, and then we can figure that out later. So to me, it was also very relatable. I wanted to go back to what you asked though, and that was about younger women. And
Yes.
you look at surveys uh, with younger women surveys and talking about body shaming and all this stuff, and they say, yeah, well, everything they see on screen and in videos and in the media, that initial framework of I'm a man, I must not be good enough or all those kinds of things, and I see so much of this in foreign films, and um, I wanted to augment my earlier statement. It's not that there are producers in this country that don't have that kind of stuff because I know those producers, or at least some of them. But it's that they can't get the backing or they can't get um, a like a Netflix or whatever to put it out there. And in talking about something like this recently, talking about my friend's film that he's out there winning tons of awards with right now and looking for distribution, um, is that he said, well, Netflix will never show something like this. And I mentioned some of the stuff that has been on Netflix, like Principles of Pleasure
Yeah.
and How to Build a Sex Room. And he just looked at me like, what? and I said, you may want to go back to them with your
You
film.
know, I have to say, it kind of disappoints me that Netflix wouldn't show whatever it is that he created because you look and see at the fiction that they have on there,
Oh,
and it is basically like they have 365. They
well,
have
yeah.
two films based on a book, and I attempted watching it, and I'm like, I don't see any plot in this film, and I'm never going to read the book.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Yeah.
there's no,
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't get it. They'll show this,
Well, yeah.
but
Yeah. It's
not something
still
that
too
could
much of the
potentially be educational and positive.
patriarchal gaze still um, has control over the money. And that's really what it boils down to. So just to close on my friend's film, um, he has gotten a foreign distribution contract for it, but he has yet to get one in the States.
Remind me what the film was. I
Jimmy
I
and
know it.
so it's Jimmy in Saigon,
Yes. Yes.
and
Yes.
it's a documentary done where his much older brother had served in Vietnam, did his tour of duty, but then went back later and within a year was dead, and no one really knew all the facts. And so it was his search for what are the facts and what was going on here. And he uncovered things that were really hard for the family to digest and comprehend. But there was a plausible enough story to put it to rest. And then later he said, no, I want to know what really happened. And so it was the struggle against his family of them saying, we've gotten over this and we don't like what little we heard, but we've come to terms with it. And why are you wanting to put this back out there? But it is a marvelous film that's been making the film festivals around the country, and I think he's won best film 7 times now at different film festivals.
That's exciting. That's really exciting. You know, it's interesting too. I think about we have so many different ways that we take in the information around us, whether it's visual, auditory, you know, we deal with all five of the senses. And as writers, you know, we're putting all that in. But as somebody who's creating film, um, it's interesting to work with people and know their work, like Kay Brandt's work or Erica Luss's work, to be looking at female-centered movies that are going to relate to the sexual content and present it in a way um, that's different than what has been historically seen as that patriarchal gaze that you were talking about, and who has the money. So it's interesting when women take back power or get it for the first time or own it for themselves, you know, and that's different per woman based on where they are in the world and what they're dealing with. And I think as a total thing, and I'm looking at what the clock is, so we're right at halfway. I think this is a great place to say that, you know, in talking about how to please a woman, I think one of the big components that we're addressing is the empowerment of women, for women to believe that um, pleasure is something they can have for themselves and put it together in whatever ways works for them and gets them what they want. You know, we've talked about fantasy so many different times and looked at Justin Lehmiller's work. And it's interesting to me how hard it is for people to be able to extract themselves from the mental and the emotional components that the world has given them. And so sometimes I think about it like you're holding two things, and you have to sit something down. It's like, yeah, sit down the negative thing and now hold the good thing with both hands. And, you know, sometimes it's the making space for the content that you want to be there for yourself. And when I see movies like this, I just get tickled because it's, wow, somebody could see this and they could have a different experience based on where they are in the world. If they're a younger person, maybe the message they're going to get earlier is that, wow, you can have great sex all the way up until you die, and that there are lots of different ways to address it. And I was going to go back to the remote control scene, because there was an element in there that has to do with that communication, non-communication point. So she's clearly in the throes of an orgasm for her is going to happen. And he realizes what is in his pocket by he's starting to pedal faster, and she's having this response, but they never talk about what it is that's going on. And he starts slowing down his movement with his feet, and she's going, no, 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 that's okay, go back to where you were. But they never discussed what it was that was happening with the remote control directly. So some of this is showing you all the different ways that we do communication, and when do you get to the place where you can say, you know, this is how we're going to have the discussion. I mean, I was looking today at the whole idea of you know, each of these different reviews that I read, the way they started, you know, one aspect of the New York Times says, this movie hinges on an amusing high concept, a company that provides house cleaning and orgasms for women. I mean, it's like, how big and bold do we need to get in order to make the point that we have a pleasure gap and we're going to create a way for women to be able to experience pleasure like they want it? Go ahead, Misha.
You should never have just one pastry.
Just do it one more time.
Yes.
I thought you'd like that.
Well,
That was
I
my
like
favorite line.
Oh, yes, you should never just. Well, it's funny because you don't know that Mr. J bought pastries this morning. So when you said that, I was down in the kitchen going,
Oh,
wait a minute, what is this?
have another pastry, Donna.
Yes, I'll have another pastry. Ramon, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just reacting. I wasn't I wasn't, didn't have any thoughts to contribute other than I know how much they love their pastries and pies.
Well, that's true. And so I was saying that, I met with this group on Friday, this writers group, and they were all about how do we, walk this line between helping women feel good about what they're doing without doing harm. And they were asking me specific, biology questions, how does the body work? If we do this, that, and the other, is that the correct information? And so I posed the question, um, from all my teaching in community in college. I always ask students, where did you learn about sex education? And it always amazed me the number of people who said romance novels. And so whenever they said that, I would, go in and try to get some more information. And so one of the women in the group on Friday did an email out to her reader email list. And she said, I was in this presentation. This was a sex educator, sex researcher, blah, blah, blah. And she made the comment, X students find out about sex ed through romance. And people wrote her back. And she said, typically when she sends out an email, people don't respond to her emails. They found her email fascinating. And she shared with me some of the things that people were commenting. And I think it's one of those things that we don't realize what types of things out in the world have an impact on us. And in that process, it becomes again another tool for that communication about sexuality, to think about all the people that responded. They could have conversations with other people about what this has to do with. And so this promotes that sex positive connotation that, we can reshape narratives by the conversations that we're having with candid discussions about sex, where people can say, I would like to have pleasure this way. I'm going to ask for it. I believe it's a priority for me, and I'm going to bring that forward. So that's one of the things that struck me about that. As a writer, what do you think, Ramon?
I absolutely agree. The stuff I put out there, a number of the positive comments I get back on my writings are that the realistic, or the realism in it, and let's face it, it makes it, you can connect to it, right? It's so absolutely we need more of it. I am so glad that writer put it out there to her audience, because I think that had to have connected, really well. So props for her. I'd love to see more of that. But like you said, you got to put it out there and be a little vulnerable in putting it out. But the rewards are amazing.
Yeah, and when we look at, they were asking me questions about, well, would you think this type of topic would be this way, that way, or the other way? And one of the things that comes out is that if everything is a teaching tool, everything, anything in the world, whether we're talking about a film, a book, somebody's conversation, if it's all a teaching tool, we're working on a meta level. We're not staying with, yeah, they said that and she said this and whatever. It's like, what can we learn from this? What is the process that occurs when people have a conversation about the differences that they think about this, or the messages that they received? And if you actually have a template where you're taking it apart for like PIMS, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, you have a different way that you're looking at the process, and you can learn and grow, and you become more intimate together because you're having a conversation about what this has to do with. And one of the things that totally, well, okay, I'm going to say this. Yeah, I was floored. Not really, but I was floored. So I'm having a conversation where I'm explaining to them that in your writing, in the same way that we're looking at this film where it had to have a screenwriter and all this stuff, that what happens in writing about sexuality is that people do not look at sex history. And I don't mean sex history in what have you necessarily done, activity wise. Sex history is from birth to where you are at the moment. And it could be different things that you've seen, you've heard, you've experienced, things that had an impact on you in a particular way. And you grab those things and put them together so that when you're writing your story to bring it forward, we have more depth and enriching qualities about a character so that we'd be able to connect with them more fully, more wholly in where they are with the conflict that they're going through. And one of the things that I was talking about was how when I teach, I always took a tape and divided a line on the floor. And I would say, on this side of the room is the United States. And I'm even going to say, hey, let's make it Alabama. Let's make it really interesting. And then on the other side is the Netherlands. And I would stand on the Netherlands side and I would talk about sexuality. And then I would jump over to the other side of the tape, and I would talk about the United States. And I'd say, suppose you look at the differences. All of this is construction. All of this about how we see sexuality has been constructed from any number of institutions or just all sorts of places that people get their information from versus what do I like? What is it that I'm thinking about? What is important to me? What is a priority for me? And those things are really interesting in that process. And the students would say, I hadn't thought about it that way. So these writers on Friday, when I started talking about the sex history, and I said, suppose if we look at sex history, that you're going to deal with two characters, one who grew up in Alabama in the United States and one who grew up in the Netherlands, and they have their first sexual encounter together. How many conflicts do you think might arise in that process? And you start listing those out, and there are wonderful ways to move the story forward or the growth forward for individual people in your story. And that's what happened in this particular movie. How we moved through Gina's issues at work where she was invisible, Gina's issues at home where she was invisible. And so she was working to make herself happy in all of the areas of her life. So it ends up being a true holistic direction about what sexuality has to do with. Oh, Dr. Melissa's here. Well, hello, my friend. How are you today?
I'm all right. How are you? Oh, I did the wrong emoji. I'm not sad. I meant to do that one. There we go.
I love it. I'll do that one back. How's that? How's that? And I'll give you a 100 too. So
you.
yes. So thanks
100% for my
popping
fat
in today.
fingers.
I can relate to that. So what do you think about this topic? Have you seen the movie?
I have not seen. I just hopped on. My puppy had surgery yesterday, so I've been taking care of her. But I have not seen this movie yet. But I'm eager to hear all about it and watch it myself.
Well, I'm excited because I think, as I've said several times, that this is all about teachable moments. This is about content that we can use to bring forward positive sexuality, that we can help empower women. And whenever we empower women, they empower the women, the men, the children, all of the people around them. And that's an important component to do it. And, a lot of the writing, and again, I'm going to go back to the writers on Friday when I talked with them, they were like, wow, it never occurred to me that I really am teaching when I didn't intend to teach. And the way I write or the way I put a story together could impact people in a way that I don't think about. What goes downstream, and can you think far enough downstream in the process of, am I putting something forward that is helpful or harmful? Am I putting something forward that's based in a theory or based in research or based in education? And, I always talk to writers too, that there's a difference between writing a story for yourself as a fantasy, if that's what's going to turn you on and give you what you need. You're you're the first reader, that's for you. But if you choose to then take that story and put it out into the public, now you're writing for a reader. And when you're doing that, you're looking at the brain function, you're looking at the spine that you have for the story, the movement that it's going to take, the micro tension that's going to occur, all of the things in your mind, from the chemicals that are going to move you forward to be connected to the people. And I'm leaning forward. Y'all see me leaning forward. I'm in connected mode. I'm leaning forward, connected to all of you that are in the space here. And all of those things come into play. And as writers, we're using those to keep people in the story. And so the empathy and the connection that we want people to feel can sit within all these stories. And I think that in this particular movie, that it was pretty moving for me. I mean, she's representing a 50-something. Well, I'm sitting here in the world at 66. I'm sitting here in the world with 46 years in the sexuality field. And so when I get to watch something where I think this is really great for how they did this or how they did that, it makes me pretty excited about the topic of sexuality. And just as an aside, two of the topics, and again, I'm not reviewing this as in I'm a reviewer for movies or whatever, but it is always interesting when you have topics like sex work or like adultery that comes in, because you know that that's going to have a particular impact for people who have intense feelings about that, who have a specific belief system that those things fit into. And sometimes I help people to sit those things in a chair to the side of them while they watch the movie, so that they can see that other people have different experiences with those things than they do. And that allows you as an individual to expand the place inside yourself that allows you to experience other people, other people's worlds, other people's directions. And as writers, I think that's a really important thing to think about. So I know I got some good writers here in the room that are already considering that. But Ramon, did I leave out any other main items from the film that you think of?
No. As you said, there were different tensions running through it, and I think you've covered this one extremely well. I will tell you that a number of the things that you really want to chuckle at or laugh at, sometimes you're not sure if you should be chuckling or feeling empathy or whatever, but there's some great subtleness in it, and I think everyone should cozy up and check this out.
You just reminded me too that one of the interesting things that happened. So here's somebody who's creating this interesting job in the movie, and she is talking to the men about how they can be better at what they're doing. And for one of them, it was, I need to send you to somebody who can show you how to really clean a house. Let's talk about the metaphor. You really need to understand how house cleaning works, and the cracks and the crevices and all of these things, as the metaphor on top of how well do you understand the house of a woman's body, that kind of thing. And it's interesting when we start having some humor about that, to say, okay, I can breathe some life into this, and there are things that are pretty funny. And I like that she would continue to talk with the recipients of the house cleaning and the recipients of the orgasms. What would you like more of? What would you like less of? What would be helpful to you in this process? And then she would go back and she would talk with the men. And then she would, have her friend who is doing the wonderful hand movement, talking about listen with your body, had that going on in the process. I thought it was absolutely hysterical when she told the one guy, well, what did you like? Um, he asked, what did you like that I did at your house? And she said, well, I like that you tucked your shirt in your back pocket. So every time he was moving with his swifter to clean the floor, that shirt was swinging back and forth, as drawing your attention to this particular area of his body. And for somebody to say, I found that fascinating, I found that interesting, I found that captivating. So you have these little tiny places that you can start saying, for me, I responded in this way to that. And so you're kind of creating your own personal sexual menu of your likes, your wants, your desires. In this moment, it was a visual thing, and maybe it was a tactile thing with the hands. And you're starting to understand within your body, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, all of the different components about sexuality that you can start creating anew with. Go ahead, Ramon.
You just nailed it. How the stereotypical scenario of the male in sex being goal oriented and the woman being experience oriented. And as you noted, this started as a cleaning company. The thought of having a hot guy, and the first thing my wife turned and she said, "Well, there's the opposite of services where a scantily clad woman shows up to clean someone's house." And so why not? But absolutely. And so I thought it again, some of the subtle things that they didn't have to come out and say, but as you said, it started out as just giving them the experience, and and then there's a point in the movie where it evolves. Yeah, I just thought that was really perfectly segued.
And it's also too looking at the journey of sexuality in a story, whether you're looking at the story visually through the movie or whether you're looking at a story that you're reading. It can be the front part, which is what this was, with the relationship and the relationship at work, both of those separate, partner relationship and work relationship, that you're seeing those things travel on the same components of her particular movement. And those subtleties that you're talking about are valuable gems of information that hold so much meaning to the individual person that you can then have those be teachable moment components about why they impacted you a particular way. And that sometimes a movie like this, I mean, I'm trying to think how many days. Mish, what day did we watch this movie? What day was that?
Soccer. It was a soccer day. Saturday.
It's one of those World Cup days when we were watching the in between stuff. Um, but the reason I asked is that, when something is impactful, it still crosses your mind after you watched it the first time, where something in the process goes, wow, remember when thus and such happened? I didn't think about that in the
I'd also
moment.
like to note that I watched it for fun. Donna watched it for educational purposes.
Wait, I was doing
I'm
both.
kidding. I'm kidding.
I was doing both.
I'd
I
like
watch
to
it for
give my.
fun.
I have to go downstairs soon, so I'd like to give my final thoughts. I think I might be alone. I
Okay.
felt bad. I think it was Haley who was helping Anthony.
Yes.
Okay, I felt bad for her because everybody, like anybody who made a comment about experience, they immediately looked to her. So I felt
Mm.
bad because she's like this single woman. She's having the time of her life. She's doing what she wants. She's making her own choices. She's living her best life. And I'm like, stop looking at her that way.
But what's
That's who I
interesting?
want to be.
I gotcha. But what was really cool was that how well
Then they
Gina
turn to her.
showed that she was listening to what the women wanted, including what Haley wanted. And so when the woman says, I want something different, and I don't know that a man's going to be able to provide it to me. And so here's
Right.
Gina in position going, wow, I hadn't thought about this in women. And who did she think of? Haley. And then it fit for Haley that she was with a woman in the process of cleaning house. So yeah, I like
Right.
I like
Right.
that, Mish. I like that, Mish. So Maggie, I'm going to pop in with you since you're still in the speaker space. Got any thought you want to share at the end now that you've been listening the whole time?
No, I just have to find time to watch this movie.
I know you will. You'll get there. You'll get there.
Oh my
Melissa,
gosh. Thank you.
too fun. Melissa, you got anything you want to add in here at the end? Oh, did you move off the speaker? Ramon, what about you?
Here I am. Okay, sorry. It I think is an honest capture of many things. While it centers around midlife in general, it transcends across the board. So yeah, check it out.
Yeah, I like that you said the transcending part because that's really true. And any of the things that we can do that for just enriches all of our sexuality and the people that we're in touch with. So that's important. Well, this has been an exciting conversation today, and I can't wait. If you have not seen the movie and you do go watch the movie, please drop me a tweet comment. I would really like to know what you thought about it, what jumped out for you. That would be really cool.
And we
I
did have
want to,
someone say it's available on Amazon to buy. So if you can't get it on Hulu, you can
yeah,
go there and
excellent.
get it. It is 2022 film, and the
Yeah,
IMDb link is in the chat and the
perfect.
Nest.
Perfect, Mish. You were just wonderful at getting all of those things together for us. Well, I want to tell you about what's coming up and what the plans are for the sexuality space for 2023. Next week, I'm going to be talking about holiday gifts, and that's how I'm going to end our December because I will be in Austin, Texas, visiting my son, hanging out with Caleth Jones of the Monap, and just playing for the last 2 weeks of the month. So I'm really excited about that. And as I said at the beginning, I'll be doing a new podcast starting on January the 5th over on the Moan app, and it will be Purple Sex and Erotic Whims. And I will be with Mistress K tonight at 9 p.m. for a mixer to learn how the app works and for people to be
Is that
introduced to me.
Eastern?
That would be Eastern, 9 p.m.
Okay, thank
Eastern
you. Thank
tonight.
you.
And I will come back on January the 4th, talking about here in the sexuality space, talking about our plans, which will be the sexy new year, what's going on. And my biggest surprise for you all is who my guest will be on January the 11th at noon Eastern time. You will be getting to hear Dr. Laurie Mintz, the author of Becoming Clitorate. She will be coming into our space, and I'm very, very excited to have her here. And then we'll talk about where we're going from there. I appreciate every single one of you being here today and taking time out of your schedule to hear what we have to do with. Please follow the folks in the space. We got some really cool people doing some wonderful things for sex positive community. And I will be, like I said, putting together some sexy holiday gift information for next week, and I'm just delighted that you were here as part of the process. I hope all of you have a terrific rest of your day, and I will see you on the timeline. And Mish, as always, thank you for everything that you do for me. Talk to y'all later.